Driving along Antelope Island Road, there isn't much to see, other than some rocks, dirt, dry branches, and the distant shore of the Great Salt Lake. But it wasn't always this way.
Currently, Great Salt Lake is about 50% of the size it was in the late 1980s. So it's dropped about 11 feet.
In 1986, the Great Salt Lake looked like this. But after years of urban development, water use, and an increasing drought, it now looks like this. And one of the areas that's been hit hardest is the southeast side, where a group of USU grad students are studying what's left behind. While the receding waterline is concerning for researchers, what these USU graduate students are looking at isn't the waterline. Instead, they are studying the dry and crusty landscape of what used to be Farmington Bay. More specifically, these students are looking at the airborne dust that is being kicked up into the air from the lake bed.
All of the things that we do in our day-to-day lives, driving our cars, all of the different industries that are located in this region. From across the entire watershed, all of these different pollutants are ultimately ending up in Great Salt Lake.
The team has found what's called polychlorinated biphenyl, or PCBs, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or PAHs, in the dust. These are organic chemicals made up of carbon, hydrogen, and chlorine atoms, along with the chemicals that occur when you burn fossil fuels. The lake water acts as a protective layer, locking in these PCBs and PAHs into the bottom of the lake. But as the water level decreased, these pollutants are now exposed and being thrown into the air when the wind picks up.
As far as PCBs and PAHs are concerned, these are carcinogenic chemicals. They are things that really any level of exposure to them is not a good thing.
And while the dust and pollutants it contains is a concern, researchers say the Great Salt Lake isn't lost just yet.
It's not a simple problem to address, and it's not always as simple as just refilling the lake, but whatever we can do to conserve water and advocate for water policies that make the Great Salt Lake a priority and prioritize making sure that the Great Salt Lake doesn't continue to shrink at the rate that it has been.
Anneka Johns, ATV News. The next time you're shopping, you may want to check the items closely in your cart.
Shrinkflation has been going on for decades. It's nothing new.
Recently added to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, the word shrinkflation is defined as the practice of reducing a product's amount or volume per unit while continuing to offer it at the same price.
I think that shrinkflation is a tactic used when companies are desperate, and I think that they try to fool consumers into purchasing what they think is the same product when it's actually just a little bit less, and hoping that they just don't notice.
And it's affecting most products, from food to drinks to household items and everyday products you use. Their sizes have been getting smaller, but their prices have stayed the same.
To look at the package, you'd never know anything was different if you didn't look at the fine print.
According to consumerworld.org, Charmin Mega Rolls recently decreased the number of sheets in their toilet paper rolls. Instead of having 264 sheets, it is now 242. Now, at a glance, it doesn't look that different, but after doing some math, 264 sheets were removed from the original packaging, meaning they removed an entire roll of toilet paper from their 12-pack.
And if you didn't pay attention to the net count and fine print on the bottom, you would never know you lost a whole roll of toilet paper.
With all items, Dworsky says that the best thing for people to do right now is to read the labels.
Double check the numbers, see if it changed. If it did change when you're at the store, see if maybe a different brand name hasn't downsized yet.
Some consumers are starting to believe that there isn't much they can do.
Nobody really has a choice. I mean, we're so reliant upon big brands and box stores that we really have no choice but to buy what brands are on the shelf. And sometimes all of them are doing it, and we have no choice.
Anneka Johns, ATV News.
We have number 138, Jackson Black, ridden by Charlotte Sturmer.
A final ride.
Shoulders down and back.
The last chance for riders to show off what they and their horses can do.
It is the medals final, so like the final show of the year, and it's a hunter-jumper show.
Educational horse shows, or EHS, are a series of jumping shows put on by Saltaire Farms every year to give riders showing experience. From seasoned competitors,
Stressful,
but literally the most rewarding thing ever.
To first-timers,
I learned today valuable lessons. One, my brain can do one of two things. It can remember how to ride a horse, or we can attempt to remember how to ride a horse. It has not figured out how to do both of those things at the same time yet.
these competitions give riders a chance to show off their skills and prepare for the big leagues.
In shows like these, your skills as a rider isn't the only thing taken into consideration when determining your place. Everything down to how your hair looks in your helmet, to how shiny your boots are, to how clean your horse is and how his braids look, all helps to determine what placement you get in your class.
The riders say the show went smoothly overall and was successful despite some hit pulls, forgetting the course,
I forget where I'm going.
and some rough falls. After that fall, this rider dusted off her boots, hopped back on, and took her horse back over those jumps before taking home first place. While winning first was the goal, for some riders, this show was a chance to honor a lost friend.
That was a horse that I rode and I was really close with. He has been in heart failure for the past year, and then his health really started to decline, and so they put him down on Monday. That's why I dedicated this ride to him, because he made me the rider I am today, and I was going to show him. So I thought that if I dedicated this ride to him, it'd be like he was still here.
Anneka Johns, ATV News. Making meals used to bring a lot of pain to Kara Pastrick after being in an abusive relationship. In 2019, Pastrick started dating a man she met through soccer intramurals. The two of them would make meals together. She said he later became her abuser.
I just remember my days being taken up by him. And at the time it all seemed good, like all these gestures of kindness, of like offering to drive me home and to help me in my classes and to help me meet other people and things like that. So it seemed pretty harmless, but unfortunately that was not the case. About a month into us dating, abuse started happening.
The National Coalition Against Domestic Violence defines domestic violence as the willful intimidation, physical assault, battery, sexual assault, or other abusive behavior as part of a systematic pattern of power and control perpetrated by one intimate partner against another. In the United States, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced some form of domestic violence by an intimate partner.
In Utah, 33.6% of women and 21.4% of men have experienced physical, sexual, and/or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime.
Pastrick says that one of the biggest things for her was how people believed her when she came forward.
Believe people that do come forward about these situations, and to provide support, and to have a zero tolerance for people that choose to act in these things.
And believing these victims, according to the Community Abuse Prevention Service Agency, or CAPSA, is the first step in their healing process.
When an individual comes and discloses that abuse, it's not an easy thing to do. That's part of why it's so important that we start by believing.
For Pastrick, after going through this experience, telling her story and coming forward was part of her healing process. And while she still has hard days, she says she takes it one day at a time, meal by meal. She is healing.
If you're here to vote, please come on this way.
Lined up inside the Cache County Event Center, Utah citizens waited to fill out and turn in their voting ballot.
The voting process was pretty easy. You just went in, handed them your driver's license, they gave you your ballot, and you went in and they would let you do your research. You could search on your phone about each candidate, whatever you needed to do, fill in the little bubbles, and then you sent it to go.
Mail-in voting is another option for voters. Cache County officials say more voters mail in their ballots versus voting in person.
We see more people mailing in ballots or dropping in the drop boxes that we have around. I want to see about 70% of voters that vote that way. We have some 30% who still want that in-person experience, or there's something wrong with the post office, and so they have to hurry and come in and vote in person.
Voters who mailed in their ballots can now track their ballots for the first time this year. On this ballot, we can see that it was delivered and counted. But for some, that still isn't enough.
I did the in-mail voting, and after the 2020 elections, I didn't like it, and I didn't believe it, and I thought there was a lot of fraud. So I was like, you know what, I'm coming in person, and I'm going to do it in person.
Despite concerns of voter fraud, everyone we talked to agreed that voting is important.
I believe it's a duty, responsibility
to come and vote. I think it's a great way for people to express their pleasure or displeasure at what's going on in their local government. And it's really, in a republic, the way that we express our will as a people.
Anneka Johns, ATV News.